Hey guys, a couple things before we get going. I want to just fill you in on some stuff that's going on. I think probably most of us know what's been going on, or at least heard about it, with the government shutdown that's been going on for the last number of weeks. As of yesterday, people that are on food assistance, that assistance has now stopped. So there's an organization here in Northern Colorado that we've worked with on multiple projects, specifically on disaster relief with fires. They distribute food to people who are in need all over Northern Colorado. They called us this past week and said, hey, we need more food. Can you help us with that? Can you help finance some of this and we can distribute it? And we said, of course, absolutely. So this past week, we wrote a big check to this organization to get food to people that don't have it in Northern Colorado, and we'll continue to do that as needs arise. And I tell you that because I want you to know what actually happens around here. Sometimes that stuff can just happen and you don't know about it. Whenever we give our tithes and offerings, first and foremost, that is an act of worship between you and God. It's between Kelly and I and the Lord. But then when we get to do that together as a church, generously, we get to do stuff like that. On the fly, we can cut a big check to help for needs that are in our area where we live, and that's pretty awesome that we get to do that. So we will continue to do that as needs arise. We'll take care of people because I'm pretty sure I read somewhere in the New Testament that, hey, feed people that are hungry. I'm pretty sure we're supposed to do that. So we're doing that as a church right now. I also want to tell you more things that are going to come up with generosity. So for us, if you're new to LifeBridge, we do something at the end of every November called Level Up. It's going to happen this November on Sunday, November 30th. What it is we have financial partners all year round. Like, there's organizations that we give to all year round here locally, around the country, and then also internationally. We also have a benevolence ministry where we give to people that are in need that are a part of our church or in the surrounding communities. But a couple years ago, we really felt pressed by the Lord to do more. Like, it's one thing to say that we're a generous church, it's another thing to actually act like it. So every year at Level Up, we pick a couple different partners. Some are domestic, some are international. It's different every year. And we just say for one Sunday, we are giving every cent that we give, we're giving it away, 100% of it. Which doesn't make a lot of sense financially, especially since we are in the middle of a capital campaign where we're trying to raise money to renovate our campus. But God's economy is totally different. Like, we can talk about generosity. Let's actually put our money where our mouth is, figuratively and literally. So on that Sunday, we're going to give every cent away that we give as a church. As of last year, we've done Level Up just a couple years. Just with Level Up, we've given away $472,000. This year, we're going over 500, well over 500. Yeah, it's exciting. So let me tell you a couple of the partners. We've had partners we planted a church in Tampa called Root Tampa. I'm actually gonna be there next weekend. I'm a part of their board. I'll get to see that. They're doing amazing. That came from Level Up. We've worked with sex trafficking organizations, the Pearl Promise that helps single moms right here in Longmont. I mean, we've done so many different things. This year, the partners, there's 3 of them. Number 1 is an organization called CIY, stands for Christ in Youth. CIY is an organization, a national organization that we send our students to, our middle school and our high school students, to their camps in the summer, to their winter camps. It is mind-blowing how effective and awesome CIY is. I was a part of it as a kid when I was in student ministry. It was incredibly impactful to me. They're doing far more great things for the kingdom now. They came to us a couple months ago and said, hey, we're creating this program where we're going to teach our students, high school, middle school, back up. High school and middle school students, we're gonna equip them on how to share their faith with their friends. We're gonna teach them how to actually evangelize to their friends and share the gospel. We've created this curriculum. We need to fund it in this way. Is that something that LifeBridge would be interested in? Do you wanna help students learn how to share their faith with their friends? And I said, that's a great sales pitch because you just put me in a bind. Like, am I gonna say, no, we don't wanna teach kids that? I said, absolutely, we're in. So there's a bunch of churches around the country that are gonna help fund that. You're gonna hear more of that in the coming weeks. We're also partnering with an organization called Global DMM. It stands for Disciple Making Movements. I don't know if you know this right now, but there are some movements that are happening in different parts of the world where people are coming to Christ, not in the thousands, not tens of thousands, but literally hundreds of thousands of people at a time are accepting Christ, and just, it's like spreading like wildfire. What we're gonna do, thank you for being excited about that. Global DMM works specifically right now in a couple different places in the Middle East, but they're seeing the most traction in northern India. Northern India is seeing people come to Christ by the truckloads. There's also pretty intense persecution and opposition to it. When we show pictures of it in the next couple weeks, they've asked us to block out people's faces just to protect them. What we're gonna be doing is funding their training program, where they bring in leaders, local leaders and pastors, they train and equip them, take care of them, and then send them back to different villages and cities to continue to let the gospel spread. So we're gonna be involved in that. And then another organization that we're gonna give to with Level Up is an organization called Convoy of Hope. Convoy of Hope is a massive, massive organization. They do a lot of disaster relief all over the world. They were all over Jamaica this past week with the hurricane that went through there. What we're gonna do specifically with them is we're gonna partner with them and feed a number of children for an entire year in Bangladesh. How many kids we're gonna feed in Bangladesh for an entire year is just gonna depend on how much we actually give. But we get to do this with Level Up. We're gonna talk more specifically about each one of these opportunities for the next couple weeks, and then on Sunday, November 30th, everything that we give as a church, we're giving it all away. And then you bless me in this by being the lead pastor. I get the privilege, the undeserved honor of making a bunch of phone calls that next Monday and saying, here's how much money we're sending you. We're actually cutting the check on Wednesday and sending it out. And every year I get a scream on the other end of the line because it's always more than they were anticipating, which is just awesome that we get to do that. So we're gonna do that in a couple weeks. We'll talk more about it. But today we are starting a brand new series called Courage in the Face of Chaos. And we're gonna spend the next 8 weeks walking through the book of Esther. Esther's in the Old Testament. If you got a Bible and you're flipping through it, it's about a third of the way through. And if you don't know Esther's story, it is legit. Esther's story is awesome. What I would encourage you to do this week, sometime this week, read all the way through Esther in one sitting. It'll only take you about 30 minutes. It's not long, but this book is meant to be read all at once. If you do that, you're actually gonna be able to pull more stuff out of it as we break it down over the next 8 weeks. Now, something that's pretty interesting about Esther. Esther is one of 2 books in the entire Bible where God's name is not mentioned. God never comes up. He's never talked about. In this story, God's presence isn't obvious, but his power absolutely is. And sometimes that's frustrating for us, right? That can be a struggle. When God's presence doesn't seem obvious, maybe we can start to freak out, or we get frustrated, or we get discouraged, or we get angry, or we just get scared and want to give up. God, where are you? Like, God, what are you doing? Are you doing anything? Do you even care, God? And then you look around at everything that's going on in the world, and that just reinforces that thought process. Global wars and conflicts, I guess God is absent. Or political divisions that turn violent. I guess God doesn't care. See, he's absent. Or in your marriage, man, my wife just wants nothing to do with me right now. And no matter what I do, no matter how hard I try to make things right, she just doesn't want anything to do with me. Where are you, God? Are you absent? Or my kid's going through something awful right now. Where are you, God? Why are you quiet? How about school shootings? How many school shootings have there been since Columbine? Clearly, God must be absent. Or where I work, people that cheat, those are the people that get ahead. And God just keeps letting it happen. Or how about this? 125,000 Christians in Nigeria have been systematically murdered, and that number continues to go up every single day. They are literally trying to kill and get rid of every single Christian in an entire country. God just seems like he's letting it happen. Must be powerless. Must be absent. I think it's really easy for us to have thoughts like that. And I'm guessing that at some point you've probably thought that God's powerless, or that he doesn't care, or that he's absent. Maybe you're in a spot like that right now. And I'm willing to bet that there's a good chance that all of us at some point will have those thoughts pop back up into our minds. God is absent. So if that happens, or when that happens, remember this: do not mistake hidden for absent. Totally different things. I mean, this is just true in general, and it really is key to Esther's story. Don't mistake hidden for absent. Let me show you what I mean. If I go over here and I go hide behind this wall, you're not gonna be able to see me at all. You can't see me, The only way you knew I'm actually here is because you can hear me talking. You can't see me, but I can still see you. That's awkward. That's kind of creepy. I'm willing to bet that, in fact, if you left after the service, you would think, hey, where was Matt today? Why was he gone? But the truth was I was here the whole time. I can see everything that's going on. I can hear everything that's going on. I hid on purpose. This is all part of an illustration to prove a point. I'm not absent at all. I'm hiding for a reason. Even though I was hidden, I was still here, and I was still working. I was still active. That's what's going on with God in Esther's story. That's going on in the entire story. Just because you can't see God working doesn't mean that he isn't. And just because you can't feel God, that doesn't mean that he's not in control. I mean, it's an incredible experience to be able to feel God's presence. And if you've been following Jesus for a while, you've had those spots. Awesome to feel God's presence. But if you could always feel God, why would there ever be a need for faith? I mean, that's an important truth at the heart of Esther's story. This story is an incredible example of the reality that God is always working, even when it doesn't seem like he is. God says in Isaiah 46, he says, "For I am God and there is none other. I am God, there is none like me. My counsel shall stand and I will accomplish my purpose." I mean, that's a truth that you and I need to learn and we need to be reminded of. And sometimes maybe it feels like you're just waiting. I feel like I'm just waiting for God to do something. I don't know what it is, but I'm just stuck here waiting. All right, if that happens, just remember this. While you're waiting, God is working. While you're waiting, God's always working. While you're waiting, he might be working to grow your competency. Maybe he wants your competency to grow for whatever he has for you next. Maybe he wants you to have more skill or more experience or more wisdom before you go into what he's calling you next. He's working while you're waiting for what's next. Or maybe while you're waiting, he's working in a way to strengthen your character so that you don't collapse and fail under what's next. You and I, we tend to think that competency, that skill, that talent, those are the things, that's what makes someone succeed or someone fail, but it's always character. Character will be the determining factor. If you lack character, eventually you're gonna collapse. So maybe what God is working on in you and through you right now is he's trying to strengthen your character. He's testing it. He's making sure that it's strong enough so that you don't collapse on whatever he has next for you. Or maybe while you're waiting, God is trying to develop and increase your dependency on him so that you trust him more and more instead of just trusting yourself. I mean, we live in a culture where self-reliance is a very, very high value, is it not? It's virtuous to be self-reliant. And there's some truth in that, but here's where the problem comes in. Jesus, the one person in human history that could have been utterly self-reliant, Jesus modeled being utterly dependent on God the Father. We think that self-reliance means you're strong. It's actually the opposite when it comes to the gospel. The more reliant you are, the more dependent you are on God, that's what actually causes you to be strong. Psalm 138:8 says, "The Lord will fulfill his purpose for me." He's gonna do it. He's gonna fulfill his purpose for me. That's a great promise to hold on to. So then we need to remember, this is how it works. The more you trust God, the more dependent you will be on him. And the more dependent you are on God, the more you're gonna wear your own knees out with prayer. And the more you wear your own knees out with prayer, the more God will call you into greater and greater things. He'll say, man, I can trust him or her with the power I'm about to give them. What I'm calling him or her into, yeah, they're dependent on me, that means they're ready. Whenever God's working on you or in your life, usually you can't see it until after the fact, right? It becomes much clearer later. God, I don't know what you're doing right now. I don't know why I'm going through this. I don't know what I'm waiting for. But after you go through it, you can look back. Oh, now I see what, God, all right, yeah. You were sharpening me. You were shaping me. You were getting me ready for this. I didn't know that this was coming and I needed to be ready for it. Oh, hindsight's 20/20. That means faith and courage in the moment becomes so much more important that even though I don't know how he's working, I'm gonna trust him in it. That he's working behind the scenes, that he's working in all circumstances. I'm gonna trust him in that. That's another theme in Esther. It's kind of like a chess game. Whenever you play chess, you're moving your pieces into different positions and places before you make your move, right? A good chess player, you're never gonna even see the move that he or she is gonna make until after they move it. And then once they do move it, and you're like, oh, I see what you were doing. I see how you were strategically setting pieces into the right place before you made your move. That's what's going on in the story of Esther. I mean, today we're just gonna set the whole thing up. We're just gonna start with the very beginning of the story. Here it is, Esther 1, verse 1. These events happened in the days of King Xerxes, who reigned over 127 provinces stretching from India to Ethiopia. At the same time, Xerxes ruled his empire from his royal throne in the fortress of Susa. In the third year of his reign, he gave a banquet for all his nobles and officials. He invited military officials from Persia and Media, as well as princes and nobles from all the provinces. The celebration lasted 180 days, a tremendous display of opulent wealth of his empire and the pomp and splendor of his majesty. When it was all over, the king gave a banquet for all the people. It lasted 7 days and was held in the courtyard of the palace. Verse 7. Drinks were served in gold goblets of many designs. I doubt that's what you're drinking out of. And there was an abundance of royal wine reflecting the king's generosity. By edict, by order of the king, no limits were placed on the drinking, for the king had instructed all his palace officials to serve each man as much as he wanted. That sounds like a really good idea. Nothing bad's gonna happen with that, right? So this dude holds a party that lasts for 6 months. And his first thought after the 6-month party is, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll have another 7-day party. Some people call that freshman year. Yeah, some of you did. All right, it's okay, it's a safe place. But hold up, let's back up for some bigger context for a second. The Persian Empire, ancient history, if you know ancient history, the Persian Empire was massive. It stretched from Ethiopia all the way to India. This story is going to take place in their winter capital, which is in modern day Iran. Now, this banquet that he threw was not just a crazy party. It certainly was a crazy party, but it actually had a purpose to it. A banquet like this was a custom in that culture to try to gain aid and support for a military campaign. That's why he invited military officials. That's why he invited basically anybody who was anyone that had any kind of influence or power from anywhere in the empire. He's trying to win over their favor and their approval for the military campaign that the king wanted to go on. Now, this particular campaign, it's a pretty well-known one in history. It was when the Persian Empire invaded Greece, which includes the famous Battle of Thermopylae. Guys, if you've ever seen the movie 300, and I say guys because I don't think any woman on the planet wanted to see that movie. Guys, if you ever saw 300, when King Leonidas fights with just 300 Spartans against that massive Persian Empire, that massive army, King Xerxes of that Persian Empire in the movie, it's the same Xerxes in Esther. It's the same guy. What's happening in chapter 1 is what happened right before he goes to fight Leonidas and the Spartans at Thermopylae. He's trying to build up his army before they invade Greece. That's what was going on. Kind of cool, the history tie. Verse 10, on the 7th day of the feast, the last day of the party, when King Xerxes was in high spirits because of the wine, I think you understand what that means, he told the 7 eunuchs who attended him, hey, bring Queen Vashti to him with the royal crown on her head. He wanted the nobles and all the other men to gaze at her beauty, for she was a very beautiful woman. But when they conveyed the king's order to Queen Vashti, she refused to come. This made the king furious, and he burned with anger. So this is gonna sound crazy, and I don't know that you might not even believe this. But after 170 days of partying, Xerxes was drunk. I know that's crazy, that's really hard to believe. And I don't know if you know this or not, but people tend not to make the best decisions when they're drunk. In fact, parties can bring the worst out of people at times. Parties in themselves aren't necessarily bad at all, but a party might show you who a person really is. Like, that's what was going on with Xerxes. He thought, you know what, it's gonna be a great idea. I wanna bring my wife out and I'm gonna parade her around in front of a bunch of my drunk men so they can gawk at her. This is the ultimate example of objectifying a woman, and it went over about as well as you can imagine. Like, Vashti refuses to do it, and Xerxes just loses his mind. So he grabs a bunch of his advisors that are at the party, and he says, guys, what can I do? Like, does the law say I can punish her? And if I can, what am I allowed to do? And one of Xerxes' advisors, he speaks up and he says, you know what? Queen Vashti, she didn't just insult you and wrong you, Xerxes. She wronged all of us and every man throughout the empire. And now here's what's gonna happen. Word of this is gonna spread like wildfire, and women all over the empire are gonna start disrespecting their husbands because of what she did. So here's what you should do. First of all, get rid of Vashti and get a better queen, and then put a law into effect that says all women must respect their husbands. So all the advisors, everybody there was like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Xerxes is like, okay, cool, sounds good to me. Pour me another one, and he does it. They get rid of Vashti, they put a law into effect that says all women have to respect their husbands at all times. Talk about being insecure. I can't believe she would disrespect us like that right after we completely disrespected her. Get rid of her and let's put a law into effect that says all women respect all men at all times throughout the empire. I mean, when I say it out loud, it sounds pretty pathetic, doesn't it? Because it is. Now hear me on this. Honor can never be demanded. It's only earned. Only earned. Yes, Ephesians 5 says, husbands, love your wives like Christ loves the church. And then it says, wives, respect your husbands. That's incredibly important. It absolutely is. But men, make sure you're living in a way that's worthy of respect. A man who's worthy of respect never has to demand it. Never does. Now, we don't know the exact reasons why Vashti refused to do this. I mean, one possible explanation seems pretty obvious, is because of the disrespect she was shown. That could have been the reason. She maybe was waiting for her drunk husband to sober up and come to his senses, maybe. Some different historians will say that she was probably pregnant with Xerxes' son at that point, so maybe she just didn't want to be seen by other people. But maybe she refused the command of the king because of a particular Persian culture and custom. A custom in that culture at that time was that women were not to appear before men in a public gathering. Maybe that's why she refused to do it. Whatever it is, here's my question with that. What do you do when there's conflict between the customs of a culture and the commands of the king? Because if you're a Christian, you're faced with that choice every single day. I mean, we live in a culture that has values and customs that are in complete conflict with King Jesus' commands. It happens all the time. I mean, just think about it. The world says, hey, affirm yourself. Christianity says, deny yourself. The world says, you do you. Christianity says, imitate Christ. The world says, my body, my choice. Christianity says, you are not your own, you were bought with a price. The world says there are multiple ways to God and to heaven. Christianity says that Jesus is the, singular, the way. The world says cancel and destroy your enemies. Christianity says love your enemies. The world says do whatever you want sexually as long as it feels good and there's consent. Christianity says flee from sexual immorality. The world says live your truth. Christianity says the truth, singular, the truth will set you free. What do you do when the culture is in conflict with the king's commands? This is where wisdom and courage come into play. When you live in a culture or a time period or a setting, because this is Esther's context, when you live in a place that's opposed to Christianity, even hostile to it, it takes a lot of wisdom to survive in a place like that. I mean, right now there's stuff that's happening in our country. Like the church is being stirred up. We're seeing it happen here. If you could have seen it on Wednesday night, you could feel it when you walked in here with all these students. You can feel it in here this morning. Like we're running out of space already. We just went to 3 services and look at it in here. We got room in the 8 o'clock and the 11 if you want to move there. Just there's a plug. But I'm connected, our church is connected with all kinds of churches all over the country, and the same stuff is happening. Stuff is being stirred up. There's an awakening going on, and at the same time, there's more opposition to Christianity and the gospel in the United States than any of us have ever experienced. I'll just show you some of my emails. Stuff's happening. So how do How do you survive when where you live is opposed to Jesus and even hostile to it? That's Esther's context. Well, survive, man. It takes a lot of wisdom to survive. And when we say survive, I don't mean, hey, how do I get to the end of my days and preserve a comfortable lifestyle the whole time? That's not what I mean by survive. And if we're honest, that can be our mindset in an American culture that, hey, survive means let me just preserve. It's not what it means at all. Can I just get to the end of my days while preserving at the very least the lifestyle I have? But preferably, it would get better and more comfortable as the years go on. That's not what it means. Really, we should redefine survive in this way. To survive means that I humbly stood on the truth and for what was right. I stood against what was wrong and evil. I followed King Jesus' commands. My life and my faith were an investment in other people. I glorified Jesus and I multiplied his kingdom. That's what it means to survive in a culture that opposes Christianity, that's even hostile to the truth. It has nothing to do with self-preservation. In fact, there is nothing about Christianity that says self-preserve, not at all. Wisdom is how we do that well. 1 Chronicles 12:32 says, the men of Issachar, they understood the times. They knew what was going on. They understood the times and they knew what Israel ought to do. I pray that over myself all the time. I've prayed for that for years. I pray that for our church, that we would all understand the times that we're living in, that we would be able to see what's really going on, that we could see what's coming so that we would know what to do as a church. Proverbs 9:10 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One, that's Jesus, is insight. So how do you live in a way, how do you live well in a way where there's opposition? How do you have the wisdom to do that? You gotta know the King. If there's conflict between the king and the culture, then you're gonna choose the culture every single time if you don't know the King. Wisdom is how we do this and how we live well. But wisdom isn't enough. It also takes courage. It takes a lot of courage. But there's a dichotomy we need to understand. Here's a dichotomy that we can fall into if we're not careful. You can be wise and still be a coward. And at the same time, you can be courageous and you can also be a fool. Just to charge into something guns a-blazing, it doesn't mean that's a wise thing to do. I mean, any fool can be bold. Boldness is honestly one of the easiest things that you can do. Boldness is easy. Any fool can be bold. But if you're bold without wisdom, you're gonna cause unnecessary consequences to yourself and to other people. You're gonna bring on unnecessary pain and destruction when it's not needed. Proverbs 27 says, a wise man sees trouble and avoids it, but a fool sees it and keeps going and gets into trouble. So many different Proverbs talk about you're a fool if you see problems and you just walk right into it. That doesn't require wisdom at all. If you want to do the right thing in the right way, it requires wisdom and it requires courage, both. We need both. Courage is another major theme in the book of Esther. The circumstances demanded it. They absolutely did. Circumstances are never by chance. Courage for us will come when we understand that God is in charge of all circumstances, even the ones that seem like a train wreck, and that he's working in all circumstances, even if you can't see it. Courage is doing the opposite of what fear says. But fear talks, does it not? Sometimes fear is very loud. Like, I don't know if you wrestle with it, but I do at times. Man, if I do this might happen. That makes me nervous. Or if I say, this one's big for me, if I say this might happen. I gotta wrestle with that one on a weekly basis. And I get scared at times. Or what's it gonna cost me if I stand for the truth? Even scarier, what will it cost me if I don't? Fear might be the greatest robber of opportunity and purpose and impact that God is setting you up for. Whatever he's calling you to do, whatever role he has for you, because he has a role for every single one of us, man, fear is gonna rob you of that more than anything else will. You're gonna see the tension between fear and courage throughout Esther. You'll see the tension of it. There's people in Esther's story that if they would have chosen fear instead of courage, the consequences would have been unbearable. But the temptation to give in to fear is real. It's very real. If you are a Christian, daily, you're gonna be given the choice to choose either courage or to choose fear. And it's not always gonna be something dramatic. Like, do I have the courage to charge this battlefield wearing a kilt and my face painted blue? That's probably not gonna happen very often. But courage is gonna be offered to you in very little things every day. And if you can have courage in the little things on a daily basis, then when the big things hit, now you're gonna be courageous when it really counts. You're gonna be given that choice. We would all say, yeah, I'm gonna choose courage. I'm a courageous person. I wanna be that. But there's another choice that you're gonna be offered that's much more subtle and actually more tempting. It goes right along as a partner with fear. Sometimes it will disguise fear. That choice is comfort. Comfort's the enemy of courage. I think it was Professor Brene Brown who said, you can choose comfort or you can choose courage, but you cannot choose both. We like to be comfortable, do we not? I do. Courage is usually not very comfortable, not at all. And when you're waiting, whatever it is that God's working on or in you, just know what he's not doing. He's not trying to make you more comfortable. He's just not. And that might be a source of confusion and frustration that we have with God. God, like, why are you not making me more comfortable? Like, why are you doing that? You must not really love me if you're willing to let me be uncomfortable. It's actually the opposite. Maybe whatever you're in right now, or if you go through something in the future that's uncomfortable, maybe God's letting you be uncomfortable so that you get stronger, so that your competency gets bigger, so that your character strengthens, so that your dependency on God increases. Maybe right now, God is letting you be uncomfortable so he can build courage in you now so you can have it when you need it. Don't give in to choosing comfort over courage. And it's really easy for me to stand up here and say it. Doing it, that's a whole nother ballgame. Don't give in to it, because I promise you this, there will come a day where you will regret when you could have chosen courage, but you didn't. I don't want you to have that regret. Right now, the culture that we live in the United States, especially in Colorado, man, it needs wise and courageous Christians. Not Christians who are wise but cowards, and not Christians who are courageous but fools. We need wise and courageous right now. That's Esther's story. That's why we're doing this series. This is my intro to the whole thing, not to the message today. I promise I'm about ready to let you go. This is the intro to the entire series. Remember, just because God is hidden doesn't mean he's absent. While you feel like you're waiting and nothing's happening, God is working. So step into that, trust him, respond with courage and wisdom, and whatever he's calling you to be a part of, whatever he has collectively for us as a church, man, it's gonna blow our minds if we step into that. That's her story. We're gonna get into more of it next week. Let me pray for us. Father, thank you so much for being sovereign and providential over circumstances and scenes and stuff, problems even, just stuff that's going on. When we can't see that you're working, we can trust that you are. Would you increase our faith in that way? Father, I pray that you would let all of us as individuals, you know exactly what's going on with every live in the room right now and what's going on with people online. Wherever we need to be courageous and wherever we need to be wise, will you make that clear to us? Would you give us courage? Would you give us wisdom? Would you help us to understand the times and know what we should do as a church? Would you give us knowledge of your son, Jesus, so that we have insight? Father, would you just open up Esther's story in a way that glorifies you over the next 8 weeks? That you would write her story on our minds and our hearts, that we would follow the examples that are in there, and that you'd use us to do great things just like you used her and Mordecai, and you even used people like Xerxes. Thank you for your word. I pray that you also would give everyone in our church a hunger for your word, a delight. Help us to understand it and know it and want to be in it more. We thank you for this. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.